All right, are we live? Okay, we're live. All right, everybody, welcome. This has been actually an exciting, well, I don't think exciting is the right word I would say, but the release notes are out for the Jurassic World Live 2.9 update, and I am getting a lot of different feedback and a lot of different thoughts and a lot of different opinions on it, and through messages on our Discord server with the Valley, which is it in the description? I'm not sure. But hello guys, welcome. But there is a lot to discuss because there are a lot of major changes going on that can impact not only PvP but raids, creature building, all that kind of stuff, and a lot of different strategies. And it would just be a lot easier if I just live streamed it, because messaging on Discord, I'm not one for typing. So I am just going to talk with you guys, and let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to talk. So there have been a lot of different changes, including tiny flyers, which are amazing. I just want to know when the update's coming. It should be this Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. Does it actually say on the... I don't think it... What's fixed? It should be this Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. That's when it should be happening. It's going to be very interesting because I always thought that Hadros is going to be a hit or miss, but so far running some numbers, Hadros may be an insanely great creature to get after this update. With the vulnerability and the double rampage attacks. We did the math here, or one of our great players did in the Valley's server here. He did the math here, and it looks like turn 1, Hadros with 2500 attack can actually take out a 6500 health creature on turn 1. That is ridiculous. Even distracted. Against Erlicospix, if Erlicospix started with Precise Pounce, Hadros will have the vulnerable counter. With distracted, with 2500 attack, will do 900 counter damage with vulnerability. And then when doing a rampage attack with the 1 times 1.5 vulnerability, strike would do 6525 damage, which is absurd amount of damage. Hello, Alpha YT. Welcome to the stream. Gorgo Trebex, Shandy, welcome. Glad you guys could make it. But just running those numbers, that's with Hadros distracted. That is basically a guaranteed kill against any fierce creature. Any fierce creature is going to die that turn 1. They have no shot. So, and just looking over some of these notes now, fierce creatures may be the outcast class now. I don't see fierce creatures overcoming any of this. Yes. This is going to be very interesting. This is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I think the only great counter really to Hadros would be Skuna, if they have heavy armor and shields. But even then, they have to be immune to vulnerability in order to overcome those, which is going to be a hard task to find. This is going to be interesting. So, just going over all of the news so far. Tiny Flyers update, introducing all the Tiny Flyers, new creatures. So, how do you say that? Coluro Saurabus? Coluro Saurabus. Wow, I need a dictionary for that one. So this one's going to be another flock creature. Alert the flock, absorb, distraction, and impact and run. Is that only 2 moves? Archaeopteryx. That'll be interesting. So, rare here, one of the earliest birds ever to live. It's going to have Absorb, Alert, Buff, and Strike, Evasive, Impact, and Delayed, Cunning, Rampage. For a rare creature, that's very interesting. Yeah, this will be very, very interesting. A lizard, yes. This tiny, I am already in love with this creature, it looks like. Let's see here, and then Archaeopteryx, rare, and then the Megalomp, rare. This is going to be interesting. Yes, another sloth, finally. Let's see, the giant sloth went extinct about 11,000 years ago. Earlier humans may have had something to do with it, like we're innocent in any of this. So let's see, this is going to have the maximal counterattack. So it's going to do damage the same amount as its attack. Okay, so it's like another sloth. Cunning Strike, Cautious Rampage. Okay, I read something on the notes here that is like a ×2 damage attack with evasiveness. So this is going to be intense. This update is going to be very interesting. Yes, we already talked about it earlier on in the live stream that Hadros is probably going to be hands down one of the best creatures in the game now for what damage it can do. Yeah, Hadros is going to be a sick nasty. But yes, so we got the new sloth rare, Kodos Hast, which is going to combine the new common coming out with Hast Eagle. So all that Hast Eagle DNA you've been hoarding onto is finally going to come into play here. Legendary, it's going to have Absorb. So there's a lot of flock creatures coming in this next update. A lot of flock creatures coming in, which is interesting since this is a change really for resilient creatures. So let's see here. Fearless Alert, Precise Impact and Run, Restricted Group Distraction. Interesting. So those are going to be the new creatures. So 1, 2, 3, so 4 new creatures are being introduced. New abilities, Cautious Rampage. Yes, this is what I was talking about. So increased speed, all damage, blah, blah, blah. Target highest damage, ×2 attack, bypassing armor. Okay, so there is finally going to be a cunning creature that will have the ability to get past resilient creatures. I don't know how I feel about that. Delay 1, cooldown 2. Okay, so the cooldown 2 is going to affect it greatly, but it could come in as the revenge killer. Cleansing, Decelerating Impact, Delayed Cunning Rampage, Evasive Wounding Strike. That seems like something a compy would have. Precise Impact and Run, that's interesting. Instant Group Distraction Impact, target all opponents, reduce damage 50% for 2 attacks lasting 1 turn. Interesting. Revenge Definite Rampage. Didn't Antarctocopenator already have this? Revenge. Target opponent with most positive effects, remove club. Also, same thing, it's just you'll be able to use it turn 1. Okay, that's interesting. That's very scary. Fearless Alert. New raid boss. Oh, Sloth is going to be one of the raid bosses. Interesting. New achievements. I don't want that. Ability updates. Here we go. So, this is what everyone has been wanting to talk about. Resilient Strike and reduced speed 1 turn is changed to vulnerable 2 turns, 2 attacks. Resilient Impact, reduced speed 1 turn, changed to vulnerable 2 turns, or 2 turns, 2 attacks, 1 cooldown. Resilient Rampage, so like Brachiosaurus, Raja, will reduce speed 1 turn was changed to vulnerable 2 turns, 2 attacks, cooldown 1, delay 1. So this is going to be very impactful for Raja because the counterattack can do a lot more damage now instead of reducing speed. So they really made Dioraja into a complete brute of a tank here. And with the Fierce class may kind of get that small chunk of the pie in the meta now, Dioraja may emerge in the meta game. So this is going to be interesting. Swap in Resilient Strike. So that's, I think, Draco Rex is going to change to Vulnerable ×2 and 2 attacks. Interesting. Medium Resilient Counterattack. Now this is important because this is Spinosaurus and Hadros. Reducing speed 1 turn is changed to Vulnerable 2 turns, 2 attacks. Okay, so Hadros is going to get an insane buff here with this ability. Hi from Indonesia. Awesome. Hi from America. I'm glad you can make it. I don't know what time it is over there. I'm not good with math. But this is incredibly important to what the future meta is going to shape up to, and especially to all the players that have unlocked Hadros that are below like the 5,500 trophy count. I think Hadros is just going to be a terror in anything below library because of the damage it can do. And same with Tenrex also. I think Tenrex is going to come out as a winner here. The insane amount of damage that those two creatures will have in the lower arenas is just going to destroy a lot of that PvP game, I think. Oh my gosh, it's going to be insane. I don't exactly know how they're going to counter a Hadros. That's going to be... How would you counter if you have like a Thor like level 24, a Trico at 24? I don't see how you're going to be countering a Hadros at 26, even unboosted. That's going to be insane. I think this is going to buff resilience and not nerf them. Yes, buff resilience may be like resilient and fierce creatures combined now for the damage output they can do. But it's a good counter. But I hope that can also make cunning creatures thrive again to keep some resilience in check. Because the math that we did earlier, or that one of our guys did show that Hadros, even distracted, will destroy a 6,000 hit point Erlikospix on turn 1. That is not all cunning creatures. That is just Erlikospix. So I'm very interested to see what other resilient creatures may come out on top, which is why I think Dioraja is a complete wild card right now, because it'll have the vulnerable moves with the counter, which will definitely escalate damage and kill things a lot faster. Yeah, I think it was supposed to buff resilience, but I think this is just gonna downright make them insanely meta again. Or at least a couple of the resilience. It might not be all of the resilience, but definitely several of them got a major boost, like Hadros, and I think Tenrex also. Tenrex, or Tenanto Rex, I think is just going to absolutely be absurd. Orion might be pretty good counter to Lux with the long invincibility. That is very true. If you swapped in, well, okay, so let's read the description here. Resilient creatures have the potential to overly dominate the battlefield because they have access to slowing behaviors, which can take over the time-based battle system. In order to make this class more balanced with the others, we replace the slowing behaviors in resilient class abilities with vulnerability-inducing behaviors. This makes sure that resilient creatures remain a foil to cunning creatures and also still pose a threat to fierce creatures, but are not predominant in the overall class metagame. Okay, so it didn't say, will the resilient moves like remove dodge and cloak? That's actually very, very important to this. I think they still will, because it still needs to beat the cunning class. Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong in thinking that. So these resilient moves not only will make them vulnerable, but it will remove their cloak and dodge, right? Hoping for some feedback there. Because if it removes dodge and cloak, you can't swap, or you could swap into Quetz, but it would take a big hit, be vulnerable, then do long invincibility. But I feel like that's hard. That's hard. The only different about resilient moves is that it can no longer decelerate. Yeah. Okay, so it'll still remove the cloak and dodge. So you would have so it would just have to be a great matchup to use Quetz against a resilient creature with the long invincibility. Which that also changes Trico, because instead of the resilient impact, it's going to make them vulnerable 2 turns with 2 attacks, which means that turn 1 it can make them very vulnerable and then counterattack. So possibly fast Tricos again. But vulnerable for 2 turns, that is a long time to be vulnerable, and that makes you so susceptible to the swap-in attacks from Sarah and Rhino. Oof. What do you guys think? Did Trico get a buff? I think Trico and Dioraja, those are going to be interesting, since turn 1 they can induce vulnerability with their counter attacks. Oof. What do you guys think? Yeah, I think Trico and Dioraja we already know that Hadros is going to be a beast. For those of you just joining, we did the math earlier, and let me pull it up here really quick on the Valley server here. Okay, so like the best cunning creature that we came up with was Erlikospix, and like sending it out first against the Hadros. With this new update, if Hadros has 2500 attack and distracted by, let's say, Pounce, means that it has 1875 attack. Then Hadros's counter with the vulnerability counters 900 damage. So 1875 damage times 2 for Rampage is 3750 attack, with the 1.5 vulnerability makes it 5625 damage on top of the original 900 from the counter. That's 6525 first turn damage distracted. Unless Erlikospix does an instant distraction on that second turn, or no, that's turn 1. Yeah, so Erlikospix won't even have an opportunity to use his instant distraction. So if that is the damage that Hadros can do on turn 1 with distraction, it's just basically a guaranteed kill for any fierce creature that you send out. Your fierce creature would have to have more than 6,500 health in order. Well, that's even with its distracted. So it would have to have over 7,500 health. That's absurd. Does anyone else besides me think that's crazy? Anyone? This is going to be so interesting. This is going to be very interesting how this turns out. So on that note alone, fierce creatures may be out, and maybe the only fierce creatures we'll see in the meta are those fierce hybrids like Tanato Rex, or possibly Acrocanthops. I think those are the only way we're going to be seeing those fierce creatures anymore. This is going to be insane. Is there anything else? Creature updates. So let's see what else has been updated. Oh yeah, so like basically all the fierce creatures and cunning creatures have had their vulnerability resistances changed to where all the cunnings, it looks like they've added more resistances to the cunnings, whereas all the fierce creatures have had a lot of their vulnerability resistances reduced. People will give up Morty. I think Mortem was hit pretty hard with the stun resistance nerf. Yes, I heard about that too, where Mortem is going to, instead of 75% stun resistance, it's 50%. You would think so? People will give. I think so. Just we'll see how it all plays out. Like maybe it's not as, I'm not saying like it's going to impact everything, but just running a couple numbers and like the concept of what this will change and like the different strategies in which you're going to be using in the arena now. Just basing off what all this speculation, it's going to be very interesting to see how fierce creatures will adapt to this, because Mortem is going to die one-on-one versus Hadros every time now. It's inevitable. With the Hadros vulnerable counter, it's inevitable. And it's possibly the same with Skunosaurus with the decelerating rampage and the vulnerable counter. If Skuna has enough damage, it could do the same thing. It's going to be very interesting to see which fierce creatures will. Yeah, I think Mortem may be more of a revenge killer now than ever. Yes, I think the entire fierce class may be just a revenge killer, and even then, I think the best revenge killer, if we're going to use fierce creatures, is Acrocanthops, and not really any of the pure fierce creatures, because Acrocanthops can be so much faster than a lot of the other fierce creatures and has the variety of precise rampage and a fierce attack that can also take out Sarah and Sarah and Monolo Rhino. So I think Acrocanthops is going to be the better version of the fierce class because of that diversity, flexibility, and speed. I wouldn't mind people giving up Thor. That could be why they did this. There's so many Thors at level 30, and it's so easy to get that maybe this was Ludia's solution to it. But with the lower health on fierce creatures, I don't see how they are actually going to stand up against these resilient, just mega attacks now. I mean, yes, granted, we are talking about the two resilient creatures that have the medium resilient counterattack that will induce vulnerability on turn 1. But then the other two resilient creatures that a lot of people would use are Dioraja and Trico, which have counterattacks themselves that deal damage and can deal damage with that vulnerability on their first turn. So I think those are going to be the top 4 resilience you're going to be seeing in the meta. Let me know what you guys think. Oh, this is going to be very interesting. Because I don't think you're going to be swapping into cunning creatures now with them possibly becoming vulnerable against resilient creatures now. I think what Ludia, I don't know, that was protected as I was reading it. Most fierce creature attacks can cleanse vulnerability. Not a lot of the big ones, like Thor's Fierce Rampage, Mortem's Fierce Rampage, and the ones that can cleanse are not armor or shield piercing, if they can cleanse. I think the only one is Allosaurus Gen 2's cleansing strike, and it's the 1 times damage. It's not a big attack whatsoever. So I'm not seeing, a lot of the fierce creatures being able to cleanse vulnerability. Cleanse vulnerability. I was thinking distraction. Cleanse vulnerability. Can they cleanse vulnerability a lot? I actually have not really looked. I guess it's so like routine that I never really actually pay attention to that, since vulnerability has not been a factor in the major gameplay at the moment. But yeah, so if most fierce creatures can cleanse vulnerability, then really then why would they change the vulnerability resistance? I gotta look up. Hang on. Fierce moves cleans vulnerability. Okay, yeah. Let's see here. Cleanse vulnerability. Yeah. So okay. So they cleanse vulnerability. So then, why change the vulnerability resistances for the fierce creatures? You don't know why they had resistances in the first place? I don't know either, but I bet you... What other main fierce creatures are there that could be impacted by this? Thor has all the same moves. T-Rex they can cleanse. Tenrex, well, is he immune to vulnerability? Oh, Tenrex is 100% immune to vulnerability. Okay, so that's kind of redundant. It doesn't make a lot of sense if they can just cleanse it. I mean, it still gives the fierce creatures a little over... Well, again, you have to go back to the medium resilient counterattack, to where like even when they cleanse and attack, the counter will just distribute that vulnerability again, making them consistently vulnerable to the next attack if they choose to. I don't have a problem with the resistances either. I think they're good as they are. It's just a lot of, like, they added Dimorphodon resistance from 0 to 50, Tupidactylus 0 to 25. So all these base creatures, I think the vulnerability resistance will also change in their hybrids as well. Group distracting impact. Oh, this will be interesting. Smile enemies. Let's see here. Rampage and Run changed to Delayed Rampage and Run. That hurts it quite a bit, actually. Attack, gave it more attack, so 1100 changed to 1200. Hit point changed from 39 to 42. Armor changed from 50 to 40%. Swap prevention changed from 40% to 60%. Vulnerability resistance changed from 50 to 0%. Ooh, I think Smilonemes took a hit with the delayed Rampage and Run. It didn't say the decelerated, it says nothing about the decelerating shield impact that it has. Spinokun finally got a buff. Spinokun. Thor has been changed. Group Shattering Impact is back and no longer have a Group Shattering Rampage. Instead it has Fierce Rampage. Hi, Split. Welcome to the stream. Glad you can make it. Carrie Yandel. Welcome. Yeah, poor yeah, I think Nemi's got hurt pretty bad here. It's way... That delayed Rampage and Run, even if it had everything it had now in the next update, that delayed Rampage and Run would have the same effects like Foe did with the delayed Rampage and Run. Oof. Spinal Constrictor got a buff, did it? Evasive Stance changed to Evasive Wounding Strike. Attack changed from 1000 to 1300. Okay. Hit point changed from 3600 to 4200. Speed 122 changed to 126. Stun resistance 0 changed to 75%. That is absurd. Speed decrease resistance 50 to 75%. Okay, so that is a lot better. Spino Constrictor definitely got a buff. Oof, that's going to be interesting. And especially with the flock creatures and the wounding strike along with its wounding counter, we could see that more. That could be an interesting change. Already loves Spino, so yay on that too. I'm sure there's a lot of Spino fans in this community. Christina, where's my... Welcome to the stream. Glad you can make it. Let's see here. So Fierce Impact is changed to Group Shattering Impact. So a lot of Thor raids are going to be changing. Group Shattering Rampage changed to Fierce Rampage. Attack got a 50% chance. Ooh, the crits! 40% change to 30%. This is interesting. Did all the high percentage or crit chances get reduced for all fierce creatures, or just Thor here? Like Mordum, it looks like it'll still have the 40% chance to crit. So with no vulnerability resistance. Interesting. Interesting. I'm also excited about Pokey. It's like they handed me some boosts. Spino Constrictor may end on the top level teams to handle the compies. It may be something to look into because bleeding has never been super effective. Let's see here. Spino Constrictor. It may. That may be very interesting. Yeah, this is all super interesting. A lot of things are going to be changing. But also, I wanted to bring up that raid strategies may be changing. I got confirmation from Ludia that the decelerating rampages from Gemini Titan and Ardentis Maxima will not be affected. They will still be decelerating. So all the raids that use them will be okay as long as the other pieces around them stay intact. But a lot of the other resilient moves from other raids, like the Dioraja ones, may impact some of the moves going first, because I know speed is an important factor for the Refanan raid on Fridays, and I think it's also a factor for the Gorgo Trebex raid at times. That's good. It may be. For raid changes, yeah, it means I could definitely think of some more strategies and more videos. But it could also mean that Hadros may be viable for raids because of that counterattack. Maybe it can induce more damage to get a raid down in less turns. Just my thought there. It'll be interesting to see how that can impact the number of turns you could finish a raid. Mordum may switch to more of a raid creature than a PvP creature. And there's just so many small changes that could lead up, and this could all be for nothing. This could be all like nothing changes. I doubt it, but it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out in the PvP arena with the flock creatures, because we're getting more, and especially since there's not, like in the legendary tournaments, there's not really an answer for flock creatures in that class, because they can still decelerate. Yeah, I'm not worried about Max or Gem. I think they're pretty much untouched in this update. They're gonna be fine. I'm so happy I invested in Gemini. But this will be interesting. So I think a lot of people are gonna be investing in the Kolhast for tournaments. Utah Runix. Ooh, this is interesting. Utah Runix, that is a great creature to bring up here. Let's look at its moves right now. And nothing's changing on it, but what are its resistances again? 75% resistant to stun, 34% resistant to swap prevention, 50% resistance to distraction, and 50% resistance to damage over time. And it still has the rampage and run. Not rampage and run is changing to delayed rampage and run. So this is interesting. So it may be, so I can see this being on a lot of teams also, as long as it's super fast. I got a buff stat and resistance, I'm pretty sure. Was it? Did I skip over it? Was that in the notes? I might have skipped right over it. Creature updates. Where was it again? Hadros Lux, Sarah Magnus. Utah ranks. Okay, yeah, it did get some changes. 1600 attack changed to 1650. Armor 0 changed to 10%. Okay, so it has some armor now. Critical chance changed from 20 to 25%. Okay, I see you. I see you, Ludia. And then resistances, damage reduction resistance from 50 to 75%. So it's gonna be another type of Magna. Could be. This will be interesting. Like, it's hard to say with these updates if these creatures will be good in PvP now, because with these small changes, it could change what others use. It's not like we're basing it off of the previous PvP meta creatures. It could completely all change, and we could have a different class of 8 creatures that we have to base all these off of, because some creatures get buffs and some get nerfs, but depending on the meta is how they are good or not. Oh, I hope that made sense. So, interesting. Schoonosaurus. Testes up here. Why are you here? Resilient impact change to cleansing, decelerating impact. Ability added, counter power heal. Oh, okay. I think I know what that is. Like every time it's hit, oh, it got an armor buff too. 40 to 45% hit point. Got more hit point because the counter. Where is? It's like every time it gets hits, it's healed, right? Now, what? Show me what I was thinking. Is it? Oh, okay, well. But yeah, it's something like that, right? New creature, new abilities, like every time it's hit, it kind of heals. I hope we get a boost reshuffle. It was not, I know it's not announced at all. I've not heard anything from Ludia, from any post from Ludia, that there will be a boost reshuffle. I've not heard anything about that. And if it's not in the description here, normally, like the last time there was an update that changed a lot of the meta game, they announced like there would be a boost reshuffle in the listing that the notes came out on, and there's not here, so there may not be a boost reshuffle for this. Maybe they don't think there was enough impact on the metagame to call for a boost reshuffle, or since there was one very recently. But I don't think they realized that this could affect raids, this could affect all aspects of the game, including tournaments. And yeah, a boost reshuffle would be great. Okay, here was my thought about a boost, about us and boosts. This was just my thought. This had nothing to do with the update. But get rid of the friendly battles. Just get rid of those. It's just a pain in the butt to get a friendly battle going, and it's not with the creatures you've built. It's just stock level 26 creatures. My thought was add another aspect to the game that you, like, not on the map, but like probably in the campaign area or like the PvP arena, and have like the raptor pen. You can go in, and with the boost you have, it's the only place where you can test out your creatures and change the boosts. And then when you find out what you like, you can try all kinds of crazy different things, like against friends or against AI. Then you can do that in the PvP arena. But I think a separate arena where we can test all this stuff instead of having such a hard commitment to using our boosts and then this happening, I think that would be a great idea for us to just test out, have fun, try different strategies without it impacting our leaderboard, the amount of boosts we have, and still enjoy the game. Just have fun, try crazy things. And maybe in doing something like that, we may be able to find out new strategies faster, quicker, and I think that's just my opinion. That's my thought. I think that would be a great aspect to the game. If you guys agree, go for it. I think everyone would enjoy the ability to freely use boosts in an unsanctioned part of the game to where it's not detrimental to your gameplay. You totally agree? Yeah, I think that would be something that Ludia could look into because that would be nice. Yeah. You would like to see if Trico and Sonato got changed. I don't think they actually got touched in their... I think the only thing that changed on them was their resilient moves changing to vulnerability. I don't think anything else on them. I didn't see them on the list way down here of any changes. Early Dominus got more vulnerable, or less, or is more vulnerable to vulnerability now. Yeah, Antarctocovenator. Why is English hard? His Definite Rampage was changed to Revenge Definite Rampage. Is he the only creature in the game with a Resilient Rampage, or with a Definite Rampage? There's someone else, right? I'm missing something? And attack changed from 1150 to 1200, which would impact his counterattack as well, adding a little bit to that. Interesting. Indominus and Telechops got some resistance. Baryonyx got some resistances. Angiodon, Allosaurus Gen 2. Yeah, all these are just minor. I'm not seeing any actual changes from Trico or Tenrex, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, that was it. Spinoonyx. That was it. I knew there was like at least one other. But, yeah, this could also, for Tenonto Rex, that Resilient Strike, hang on, let me pull up the Mortem strat, because he uses Resilient Strike once, right, in that strat? Does it affect the move order? Oh no, he doesn't even use a Resilient attack at all. And, ooh, but I will add this. Gemini and Maxima both... their Resilient Strikes were changed to the Resilient move. So they could actually start with a Resilient Strike, make them more vulnerable, and then do the Decelerating Rampage or the Definite Shield Rampage or Defense Shattering Rampage to deal much more damage. I just now thought of that, because they will be able to add vulnerability to their opponent now. So, oof, and they do Resilient Strikes a lot in raids. In Mortem, the Mortem strat with the Gorgo, Maxima does Resilient Strike for the last two moves of the first round. Same with Gemini. And Sarah Magnus, they do Resilient Strikes. Not as often, but they do them. So I think they could change raids by adding more damage to them. But those creatures need three turns for each round to charge their decelerating rampages. So yeah, this may affect raids a little bit more than we're used to. So don't go crazy over if the raids are changing a little bit. I think they will be. But yeah, I didn't put that together. So Gemini and Maxima will get the Resilient Strike and make their opponents vulnerable. So you may see a lot of strategies where they start out with that instead of the Decelerating Rampage. That would mean we'll go through raids too fast. Yes, exactly. Fewer turns, which means that Maxima and Gemini couldn't do their Decelerating Rampages on that turn 1 of each round. So, oh, man. Yeah, so that could impact several raids, but also that can impact the PvP strategies as well, making creatures vulnerable. Because those big titans can take a huge hit, like if someone starts with a fierce creature and then you send out a Maxima, well, instead of doing Decelerating Rampage, you can do a vulnerable and then do like a defense shattering and get over what other things you can do. Less turns, no charge up, new strats. Yep, that's my thought as well. A lot of raids with them may be changing and may not be. It just depends on the strategies, because I know like raids like Gripolith do the self-healing and just cleanse the vulnerability. And there are some vulnerability resistances to the raid bosses already. There already are some. But still, like, it's not enough. Like we've seen with the raids that use the rending attack, like they'll set up the vulnerability and then do the rending attack with like Ankylosaurus in the smaller raids, and it still deals massive damage. So it's going to be interesting, especially if you combine a Resilient Strike with a rending attack. Like Thyla is a superiority strike, so did those not get changed at all? Like they can still decelerate 1 turn and cleanse? A way around this would make raid bosses become immune to vulnerability? Possibly, but what good would... I mean, vulnerability could be part of the strategy. I just don't think it should be as influential in it. But I'm just curious to see what that would do with rending attacks now as well. Because creatures like Thyla, apparently superiority moves are not affected whatsoever. They'll still be able to decelerate. So really they just changed the resilient, the 5 resilient moves, but not like Decelerating Rampage and Superiority Strike, which is interesting, because that could affect tournaments also. Rending would do a lot of damage, yes, but not a lot of them, because for 2 turns, so you could do like a Hadros counter, with Hadros' counter, swap into Thyla, the distracting, since they'll be vulnerable for 2 turns, Thyla would be able to get a rending attack in on a vulnerable creature. That would take a lot of strategy, a lot of setup, and very unlikely to see. But if you're in the like 4,500 trophy to 5,500 trophy count arena, that's where Hadros and Thyla could be on the same team and could be used. Just throwing thoughts out there. Like, it doesn't necessarily, like, I think it would be unlikely to see that, but it would be interesting to see that in raids, how a rending attack would combine with a vulnerability and make raids possibly much faster. What that wouldn't need a Gemini or a Maxima. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your feedback and your thoughts on it as well, because there's a lot of things that have overlooked, and I know I have overlooked. Brachiosaurus would be affected a lot. Brachiosaurus, let's see here. It does have the resilient strike and resilient rampage, no counterattack, and speed decrease immunity. So let's see here. It has resilient strike, group taunting shields, and resilient rampage. So it would just do a lot of vulnerable attacks, but not. It'd be hard for it to capitalize on it. Stun 67% resistance, swap prevention 67% resistance, speed decrease 100%. I mean, it's possible that Brachiosaurus could do more damage, but it's not getting any other changes besides the resilient moves. I'm not sure how I feel about Dodecurus. Let's check out him. I've been collecting his DNA, but I haven't really actually looked into much of him. I just know he has a lot of armor, 50% armor, resilient strike, resilient rampage, group taunting shields. He's 100% vulnerable resistant and reduced damage 50%. I think the reduced damage, well, that's also one of the, okay, so they'll be able to cleanse distraction still. There's nothing in the notes that says there's going to be any changes to that. Dodecurus got its resilient rampage changed to decelerating rampage? Wait. No, did it? Hold on. I didn't see that in here. Ability updates. Oh, where's creature updates? Creature updates. I didn't see that. Where did you see that? Hello. Oh, Dodecurus, here we go. Resilient rampage changed to decelerating rampage. What? Okay, so this could be a tournament staple to get past the Compy Gen 2s in the rare tournaments. Wow. Great catch. I didn't catch that. That's so interesting. That's such a big move for a rare creature to have. I wonder, because honestly, if you look at the rare class, there's, I think, only one creature that has a group, that had a group decelerating attack, and I think it was Tuo Jungosaurus. I think that was the only one. But other than that, yeah, like the whole rare class didn't really have an answer for Compy Gen 2. But that makes things very interesting. Yeah, it's Tuo group decelerating strike. I think that was the only rare that had a group attack. Interesting. So it can do vulnerable, because it'll still have the resilient strike, and then decelerating rampage, and then shield. Wuhersaurus thing has a group decelerating rampage? It does? It's exclusive, and I don't know why. But I've really never seen this thing much. Oh, it does have a group decelerating rampage. Maybe that's why it's exclusive. Wow. So it would just be the same as a Dodecurus, but Dodecurus has armor. Spino Constrictor is actually good now. It may actually be. I have like a hair on my nose, and it's like. Spino Constrictor, yes, it definitely got a buff, and with the flock creatures and them adding much more flock creatures now, may actually be a part of the game again. Big part of the meta game, with the hit point, or with the health increase, attack increase, and the evasive stance changed to evasive wounding strike. Stun resistance. I think that's the biggest thing that Spinal Constrictor could have gotten to make it really, really good. Because what you can do sometimes is just stun them and swap out and avoid the swap in counter that it has, the swap out counter that Spinal Constrictor has. But with the resistance now, and its speed changed from 122 to 126, that makes it really good against flock creatures. Makes it really good. Yeah, it could really counter the flocks, and especially if fierce creatures. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but just based on this information, just in my own personal opinion, I don't see how fierce creatures are going to come out of this, since I think cunning creatures are going to be thriving much, much more. And I think the strategy in PvP going into this, or after this update, is going to be starting with the fastest cunning creature you send out first, because it'll dominate just like Magna is now. Because what it's going to turn out to be is the fastest cunning creature wins. I think that's what a lot of the matchups are going to be like now. I could be wrong, but that's just what, seeing all these changes, I think that's just my first take at it. I could be totally wrong, but that'd be interesting. One of your favorite things to do against Spinal Constrictor is to swap Trico and kill it with the counter when it goes for an escape evasive strike. Possibly. The damage over time affects flocks differently on flocks. Their absorbability on attacks, not status. Their absorbability is on attacks, not. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, the damage over time and bleed is amazing against the flock creatures, which, if you haven't unlocked the unique compy or faced him yet in the arena, it's absurd. He is really good. It is insane how it's like you have to read an encyclopedia just to use him correctly, but he's really good. And I think Spinal Constrictor would be a great counter to it that you can just swap into. And then you could, like, well, doesn't he have the swap prevent as well? Scorpius Rex Gen 3. How would that fare in this? I think Scorpius Rex Gen 3, I mean, he's completely untouched. He was immune to speed decrease already. And with the, oh gosh, it'd be so, like, when you swap into him, he gets that insane speed increase, which cannot be decelerated now unless you use like a superiority strike or decelerating rampage. So Scorpius Rex Gen 3 is going to be still like the fastest cunning you're going to see. Yeah, it goes completely over the absorbability. Yeah, I do understand that, which is why I think Scorpius or Spinal Constrictor would be a great counter to those blocks. Yeah, with Scorpius Rex Gen 3, I think is just completely untouched. Because when you swap into him, he's still going to be faster than any other cunning creature you're going to see. Yeah, I think he's still basically broken after this update. Spinal Constrictor has an escape evasive strike, so it's a semi more aggressive anti-swap option. Yes, okay, I didn't remember the counter for it, but yes. Thor is getting a major nerf. I think the entire Fierce class is getting a major nerf, to be honest. With the new thriving of these cunning creatures and the insane damage output that resilient creatures can do now, I don't think much of the Fierce class is going to have much of a chance. I could be totally wrong. I could be. I could be totally wrong, but just looking at the resilient creatures that most of the players use and just doing some simple math, those resilient creatures are going to do some major damage. Like Dioraja and Trico, I mean Hadros and Skuna are just absurdly going to be the best resilient creatures. It gets a major boost concerning raids, yes. Impact is back, but I don't see Thor being like top tier meta anymore, because not a lot of players have boosted its health. And with just Hadros out there, if you're in that high of the arena, Hadros can guarantee kill it on turn 1 with that vulnerable counter. Thor would have to have more than like 7,500 health in order for it to survive Hadros turn 1. That's how absurd Hadros is going to be in the arena now. It's going to be insane. So I just don't see Fierce Creatures at least being a part of that top tier metagame. And I think there's going to be a lot of slower Hadroses as well to get that counterattack first before its attacks. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of slower Hadros builds. Priority distracting impact. Wait. Skuna has priority distracting impact. That is a big change. Wait. No, instant group distraction impact? What is that move? Instant group distraction impact. Target all opponents. Reduce damage by 50% for 2 attacks, lasting 1 turn. Attack 1.5 damage. What sorcery are you bringing into this game, Ludia? He's not even a... Oh my gosh. A priority damage distraction attack. I didn't catch that. Great pointing that out there. Yeah, so next season is going to be the Skuna Championship. That is next season rewards. That's going to be such an impactful tournament for everyone in the game. You gotta be kidding me, right, meow. Instant group distraction impact. I mean, that would make Skuna great for raids also, but for PvP, let's see, what would the matchup... I mean, that's just instantly kills any fierce creature. Even the super fast ones. Like a Mortem with 138 speed. Oh my gosh. Thor couldn't overcome that whatsoever. Oh man. That's absurd. I didn't even catch that. When's the update? Since I sent out the notes today, I'm pretty sure it's going to be this Tuesday. That's how it's always been with them, so I don't see why this is any different. Skuna becomes even more crazy. Yes, oh my gosh. I agree with the subject of fierce dinos, especially with the Compsognathus and Scorpius Rex Gen 3. They hard counter almost all fierce dinos, not including Spix or Magna coming back into the meta. Yes, Magna's immune to vulnerability, right? Like 100% immune? With all of his resistances? Vulnerability, yeah, 100%. So, I mean, very fast Magnas may be back into the metagame. Kill Me Thor's getting nerfed. It's not as much getting nerfed, it's just that the metagame around it is going to be drastically changing to where Thor may not be on that top tier level anymore. I think he will still be dominant in the lower arenas, especially like a super fast one with like 135 plus speed and some high damage. But I don't think, and it's going to be very useful for raids, but I don't think it's necessarily a nerf. It's just that the metagame around it is just going to be changing a lot. Skuna is group distraction plus restricted group distraction. Yeah, there. I did not realize that move on Skuna. That's how are you going to take down Skuna? How are you going to do that with its 30% armor, 20% crit chance, and basically fierce creatures going out? What is the Skuna counter? What is the Skuna counter going to be? Grypo? But even then, it'll be distracted so heavily that it can't do any damage. We have new Phlox. Yeah, but I don't think that would... Phlox would take out Skuna, but what is going to take out Skuna now? This is absurd. Grappleth, but it would just get distracted so much that it wouldn't be able to use its counterattacks. Like if you've used Magna against Grypo, like you know that once Grypo is distracted, it can't do any damage. Antarctovinator. I really wish I had like a pronunciation for that. Could be the new Skuna counter. Could. It would have to have an insane amount of attack though, because Skuna's health would just... A lot of players have been boosting the health and attack of it. Let's see here. Because it has distraction resistance, right? Pretty sure it does. Reduced damage, 100%, okay. Gets slightly more attack. You would have to do some serious damage to that as well. Megastocurus could become a very viable swapper. It has a resilient impact followed by a rending move. Ooh, you may be onto something here. That's legendary, right? It's a legendary weird dog looking thingy. Yeah, this guy, okay. Fierce Strike, Group Shield, Resilient Impact. Okay. Which would change to Resilient Vulnerability. Defensive Rending Attack, so target, highest hit point, remove shields, deal 40% of target's max hit point as armor piercing damage. Oh, but that's when you would do the instant group distraction impact to reduce that rending damage. Cooldown 2? I don't know. That would be an intense guessing game. Spinal Constrictor, yeah, Spinal Constrictor may be the forerunner for Skunosaurus. I mean, what else is there? What else in the metagame could take out Skunosaurus at this point? Oh my gosh, hair, get away from my face. Gosh. You still remember in 2018 when Thorodorosaurus was 138 speed? Yeah, actually mine is like very close to that actually. Grypo has Ferocious Defense, which can deal heavy damage with the counter when distracted. It still wouldn't do that much damage, to be honest. especially with the back-to-back distractions. I don't see Gripo being the solution to Skunosaurus, but man, that is crazy. uh, because even if you used Mortem against Skuna, that 30% armor would hinder Mortem's cleansing impact. This is crazy. Grandpa can cleanse with a heal. Yes, but Skuna now has back-to-back distractions. Or can do back-to-back distractions, whereas Gripo can only cleanse that distraction once every 3 turns. Because his emergency heal is a cooldown of 2 turns. You can only use it on the 3rd. I don't see Gripo being the solution. I think Gripo, with all the new kinds that are going to be thriving and Skunosaurus' distraction, I think Gripo is only going to be the Slayer for Hadros. I think that's the only... But even then, like, is Gripo immune to vulnerability? Because in that case, Hadros can double stack its vulnerability with the counter and on top of its normal moves. Stun 75%, swap prevention 67%, so Gripolith is not immune to vulnerability, which means Hadros can stack. Hadros can stack its vulnerability onto Gripolith and just obliterate him, like Exodia obliterating Blue Eyes White Dragon. Oh my gosh. How? Oh boy. Grapple can cleanse with a heal. Yeah, but it's only for 1 turn. I mean, Skuna will have the no, wait. Restricted group distraction. Okay, so it's not... Okay, I thought he had 2. I thought he was gonna have 2. It's changing to 1. And it's instant. Gosh, okay. So let's see here. If you sent out... So, more than likely what would happen is you would defeat a creature with Skuna, and then someone would send out Gripolith. First of all, Skunosaurus has 67% swap prevention, so it's likely you could swap out. Even if you don't, see here, you could start... You could start with instant group distraction impact, doing damage. And then Gripolith would probably do his ferocious defense. Then Skuna... Then Gripolith next turn would do emergency heal. Skuna would do group decelerating rampage. Then let's see here. Or you would do, once he cleansed himself, do Resilient Strike, make him vulnerable again, then do the group decelerating rampage. That would be turn 3, with Skuna last till then. That'll be an interesting matchup. Actually, Gripolith could be. I thought there was going to be 2 distraction moves for Skuna, but actually, yeah, you're right. Interesting. Resilient attacks should still go through evasive and cloaking and cleanse distraction. Yes, that's actually, there's no word on that those will change at all. So it's going to cleanse distraction, remove cloak and dodge, and add vulnerability. That's as far as we know, because it still needs to be dominant over the cunning class. So if you predict the Skuna, Thyla can kill it. Yes. It'll just be interesting to see how it all plays out. Because, like, you could play mind games with your opponent there and be like, I'm not going to use it this turn. I'll use my instant group distraction the next turn when I think you're actually going to use the rending attack. I do it all the time. About removing speed increase for what? Who's removing speed increase? Who's ready for the Hydra Boa raid on Sunday? I'm ready. I'm going to be ready for it. We're trying to figure out a strategy for it. Just running some numbers. Can take a huge chunk of Skuna. Yeah, I think Spino Constrictor may be the answer to that. But really only get a 1-for-1 exchange if you don't get swapped out on yes. Yeah, Resilient Strike doesn't decrease anymore. Yeah, we've already went over that there's going to be no more decelerating from those resilient moves. Spino Constrictor, we'll see how Spino Constrictor turns out. It may be, because it's possible it could be an answer for Hadros, because since Hadros has those relentless attacks that can trigger that wounding counter from the Spino Constrictor with only 1 heal and no escape on Hadros whatsoever. Spino Constrictor, if it had enough health and ability, may be able to overcome Hadros. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Spino Constrictor may, but again, this is all speculation. Like, it hasn't come out yet. We don't know how it'll affect like the bigger picture. We could all be wrong. Nothing could change. I mean, I doubt it. There's going to be a lot of different changes, I feel like. Resilient Strike can still remove speed increase? Possibly. I never really thought of that. But yeah, I guess it should. But I think not a lot of creatures are having their speed increased. I think the only ones that we would be seeing are like Orlycospix's small attack, Scorpius Rex Gen 3's swap in, and for tournaments, Sloth. What other ones might leave? I know there's a couple other creatures that are there a couple more that increase their speed that we see a lot? I don't know. I don't think so. But may end up being meta relevant. Yeah, it could be. It seems as of right now it may be an answer to a lot of these. Especially since Spino Constrictor, it has reduced damage resistance, right? Yeah, reduced damage 100%. Yeah, it may be the front runner for countering Skuna at the moment, just because fierce creatures are going to take such a big hit right now. What do you think about no boost reset? How? I think I don't know for certain, but I think that we don't have one right now because either we had one somewhat recently, or Ludia may think that these changes will not have as big of an impact as they might have. I think, in my just looking at so far, I think the bigger changes are going to come in the lower arenas, like Aviary and below. Those players that have unlocked Hadros are just going to onslaught anything those arenas have. Uh, it's possible they forgot to include it in the forums. It's possible they might have. They might have just forgotten to put it in the forums. I hope that is the case, because not only could some PvP teams change, but some raid strategies may be able to change, tournament strategies, and a lot of players do put boosts in those things, those creatures, and especially for raids, a lot of players have actually boosted creatures specifically for raids, and specifically for like certain raids that they can participate in. And if some of those creatures do not become relevant anymore, then it's harder for those players to apply new boosts to new raid creatures. And in my opinion, I think that's a little unfair to those players. Again, I haven't sent a message to Ludi at all about this. I don't know what their plan, what their ideas about the boost reshuffle are, but in my personal opinion, I think there should be a boost reset, just to see like how impactful this may be, because it could impact raids greatly without us even really realizing it. Yeah, the counter rampage with Hadros will destroy a lot of the lower arenas. We got a booster shovel when 2 creatures got nerfed, but when a class gets nerfed, Ludi is like, nope. Yeah, that's why I'm really hoping it was just left out of the forums, and that there is going to be a boost reshuffle. I really hope so for all those, because a lot of the players slowly coming into the game, and some of the newer ones really want these apexes, so they boost like certain creatures like Triostronics or Turamoloch to help participate in these raids to get these creatures. But if I'm not saying like those 2 specifically are going to be out of raids now, but if an easier raid strategy comes out, that they cannot Game Press confirmed that there is no boost reshuffle. Oof. I'm not on board with that. Especially changing an entire class. I'm not on board with a no boost reshuffle. Oof. Oh. I'm not on board with that. That's not only could a lot of raid strategies change, but if new creatures like Spinal Constrictor are the answer to a creature like Scunosaurus, which as of right now, with fierce creatures coming out, I do not see a solution to Scunosaurus, or at least a fast and viable one. How about Cautious Rampage bypassing armor? That is very odd, but it doesn't bypass shield, and it's going to be on a cunning creature, which I don't see you swapping into that specific creature for taking out like a Scunosaurus or like a resilient creature. You still think Triostronics will still be a big creature in raids because of the attack buff? I think so too. I'm not saying like Triostronics is out now. I'm just saying like there are a lot of other strategies out there that a lot of teams have unfortunately told younger players and lesser level players to boost so that they can fit them into the strategy. One that I'm aware of is a modern strategy that involves early dominance, which is based on chance, which is not the best interest for the players. So there are alliances that have misled some players, and I feel like a boost reset or reshuffle, I think a boost reshuffle would be a really good thing to do in a situation like this, where it could impact the raids and PvP and tournaments. That's just my opinion. Yeah, you don't know what to do with your boosts on Dio or I'm guessing that's Turamolak. I think Turamolak is still going to be a staple for raids. I am just saying, like, there are other strategies that are not as popular that a lot of players have boosted that I've talked to that have wanted to join one of our teams. Which, if you go to one of my Jurassic World Live videos, the Valley server, we talk about all this there. If you want to join that server, we have a lot of different teams that would love to have you chat Jurassic World Live. That's where we do a lot of our Jurassic World Live work there. I don't think the link is in the description of this live stream, but if you click on any of my Jurassic World Live videos, that should be on there. Yeah, I don't know how Dio and Trico are actually going to be affected by this, because on one hand, Dio Roger could be just an absolute monster, doing a vulnerable strike on turn 1, and then having a counter attack that will do 1.5 damage. So if you boosted it to like 2,000 damage, it'll do 2,500 armor piercing. It could just make Dio Raja that much better. But then there's the Cunning class that could just ultimately shut down that counterattack. Because yes, the Resilient Strike will cleanse Distraction, but the counterattack doesn't. So I think there's still a lot for us to decide and figure out before everything, like when the dust settles and we actually see how this update goes. But yeah, there's going to be a lot to figure out, and I'm unsure. I'm not going to say like which creatures to boost, which creatures not to after this, just speculating on this information. There's still going to be a lot of dust to settle when we need to figure out what to do with all these changes and what's good and what isn't. There's going to be a lot of that coming up. Oh, that's going to be interesting. Because also, like, I have several boosts on a lot of creatures that I may want to change up, especially maybe applying some to a Skuno or a Spinal Constrictor. After third update, yeah. After this update, yeah. I really think a boost reshuffle is kind of needed for a situation like this. Just because there's so much unknown and no one can definitively say that one class is better than the other. It's more or less now going to be like a certain group of creatures from each class can dominate their weaker class or their weakness class. I think there's going to be a lot of that because I think Erlikospix can just rampage, and so can Hadros on resilient creatures and fierce creatures. I think those two are just going to wreak havoc on fierce creatures, and those are two meta creatures that a lot of people are working on. So I really do think that they needed a booster shuffle with this introduction. That's just my opinion. There may not be as great of changes as I would think or that I may be implying, but I think there's going to be a lot of changes, and I think there's going to be a lot of creatures that players are not using anymore that are boosted. I think that's going to be happening. especially people that have boosted things like Maxima that could actually really want to focus on Spinosaurus now. Because Spoon is going to be a boss. That resilient counterattack on it is just going to make it in a class with Hadros. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. It's interesting. I'm excited for the new flock creature, the common. I would love this. I love the artwork on this. I want this creature. I want all of it. Do you think Gemini will still play a major role in raids? Yes, I think it will. But you would have to be extremely cautious because there are a lot of raids where it uses its Resilient Strike. But that Resilient Strike induces the vulnerability of the raid boss. Which means when you then use like a Mortem, or if you're partnering with a Gemini, another Gemini, or a Maxima, can deal much more damage than you want, especially if the raid has to end in 3 turns, which Gemini and Maxima really have to recharge those decelerating rampages. So you have to make sure that even though you're using those resilient strikes to reduce damage, that you're not actually increasing the damage of each round. So we're gonna have to figure out a lot of different numbers for everything. Change is fun, yes. I'm excited for change just because some newer creatures get some spotlight. Like I think Spino Constrictor really could be great in the PvP again, and I think Dodecurus could actually be bigger in rare tournaments now, and it gives us a few more raid strategies for us to figure out. I'm excited for the changes, especially for this little guy. I'm a huge reptile fan. I love reptiles to death, so I'm actually really digging this. Oh, there's so many different ways you could pronounce this. So I'm just not gonna even butcher it that badly. Bet Ludia nerfs Skuna next patch and still doesn't give us a booster shuffle. Oh, that would suck. That would. I feel like only monsters would do that. Skuna, I don't think Skuna needed this instant group distraction impact. I don't think it needed that. Oof. I don't think it needed that. Oof. Yeah, those are just my thoughts on it was a monster resilient PvP tournaments. Yes, but it's one of the very few rares that have group decelerating or a group attack move, which I think only 2 Jungosaurus and then the Yaoto. How do you? What's the pronunciation for that? Sorry. Woohoosaurus. That's it. For the rare class, which the Compy Gen 2 would just wreak havoc on the rare tournaments then. At least the instant move has a delay. Yes. Conveniently when the fierce creature's big attack would come. That happened with Ardennis Maxima last year. It was insane to win. And if you look on my Jurassic World Alive playlist, check it out. There is one video that you are not allowed to see because I called out Ludia on that. There was rumors of an Ardennis Maxima nerf coming, and they gave it as a tournament reward, and I was not happy with it. So I hope they just don't do that again. But I really don't think Spinosaurus needed that buff with instant group distraction impact. Ugh. This could be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how this turns out, especially this Tuesday. So, and look at the calendar here. So we'll have time to play with it before the next tournament. That's good. So we wanted to play like the last tournament of the season with these changes. That's good. That's very good. Because, man, that would be chaotic. This will be interesting. Have I overlooked anything, guys? You guys have been fantastic with pointing out some things I have overlooked, and I would just like to be as well informed right now as possible so I can decide, or so I can at least figure out what I should start investing in and what I should form other players to start investing in. Because I am working on something that will help a lot of players use their resources wisely. I am helping with a lot of that. It's taking so much time, so much math, so much brain and coals being fried doing it, but if I'm overlooking something, let me know. Gemini should still be good in raids. Yes, Gemini should still be good. Just you have to be extremely cautious about that resilient strike turning into when you're trying to use less damage to make sure the round goes in 3 turns, that you're not actually doing more damage. There's going to be a very thin line and a tolerance when figuring out how to use Gemini again in raids. Same with Maxima. Because no, the decelerating rampage is not being affected whatsoever, but their resilient strikes are becoming the adding vulnerabilities, which both of them have. So it'll be interesting. There's going to be a lot, I think, less leeway with the damage in raids now. Do you think Mortem is going to be outshadowed by Thor on raids? I don't. It depends on if players are going to boost Thor. Because I don't see much PvP viability with Thor at all anymore, with the cunning classes going to be thriving like a weed on concrete, to where a lot of people, I think, will take their boosts off of Thor, which would make him less so I think there's going to be less Thors to use in raids. I think Mortem will still be the go-to for the Apex raids. Gonna be outshadowed by Thor. Yeah, that's really hard to figure out right now. Yeah, for less damage you would want Mortem, yes. But for a faster raid, Thor would be good. Yes. I am streaming right now. Why? Whoops. Sorry about that. I don't see Thor becoming a part of the Apex raids. I think Mortem will still be the go-to for that one. Again, I could be wrong. It also depends because Thor, Because Thor can't cleanse himself, and with a when you're fighting, or when you're raiding Referendum, he has that counter distraction, which I know Mortem uses his cleansing impact way more in that raid than any of the others. It'll just be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how this turns out. I am excited, and I would be more excited for this if there was a boost reshuffle. If there was a boost reshuffle, we could have a lot of fun figuring out all the new strategies and just yeah, I would be more excited if there was a boost reshuffle. I think there's way too many changes that could happen for us to not have a boost reshuffle. Because like I have a boosted Thor, unfortunately. I don't think he's gonna have a space in my arena team whatsoever anymore. Because with these updates now, having both a Thor and Mortal on your team is just asking for a trophy drop. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Who knows, maybe Ludia will give us a boost reshuffle once the dust settles and we figure out, and like the top players have figured out what is good and what isn't anymore. Maybe there's one later on very soon in the future. We don't know. At least I hope so. There better be. Let's just be very interesting. Ludia may be doing something different, that a boost reshuffle that was deleted way before I could understand that. They may be doing something different. Thor was our go-to since more people had it. I'm hoping it won't change much. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with like the players between the 4,500 trophy count and the 5,500 trophy count, and really all the players below. I think this will affect them way more than it will affect all the players that have the creatures with all these resistances and the options to use several different higher level uniques in their arena teams. I think this will affect way more of the lower end players than anyone else in the game, which is why I vouch for a boost reshuffle. Now, that was my thought earlier. Like, this is going to affect the lower arenas way more than I think they will understand. Especially with the players that have been carried through Hadros raids, which is, I think Hadros is by far the easiest Apex raid of them all. Has the lowest requirements and the easiest to survive in. A lot of those players do have Hadros. So it may just... We'll see how it happens. Yeah, maybe they want to see how things play out before we reshuffle. Yeah, that's what we brought up a second ago. Like, maybe they have something like once the dust settles, but it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how the next few months pan out. Because it took us, gosh, a year to get a boost reshuffle, a little over a year between boost reshuffles, and we had one, what was it, like a couple months ago? When was the last boost reshuffle? I had completely forgotten. Can I find out when? How? Oh, now I'm getting requests for a voice channel in our Valley server. That'd be interesting. I think I deleted it about earlier, but I can try adding it again. Let's see if I can technologies when I have a second. 2-turn vulnerability from a medium resilient counter attack is just BS. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier. Like 2 turns for vulnerable attack, and plus Hadros, they stack. We tested this in raids before, where like not only do the buffs stack, but vulnerability stacks also. So Hadros with his counter is going to stack vulnerability on his attack, and then stack his counter attack vulnerability, which would make it absurd amount of damage. Just completely absurd. It would do way more than, if a Hadros has 2,500 damage, it would do way more than 7,500 damage on the first turn if it was slower. Which just makes it a guaranteed killing anything on that turn 1. Which I'm not too sure I'm a fan of. That you just start out with Hadros and you have the first basically guaranteed win. Because even if distracted, it's still like 6,500 damage. Oof. No, it doesn't make it last longer, it stacks. That's the problem with vulnerability. Like if someone survives that Hadros, like let's say it's a Hadros versus Dio Raja. Like Dio Raja will probably shield that turn 1 to prevent that big attack from happening with the armor, the 30% armor Dio Raja has. Like Hadros will be able to take out a massive chunk on turn 1 and turn 2 if Dio Raja does not shield, just because of the vulnerability. And even then you could do like a small attack for Hadros that turn 2 if Dio Raja does the instant shield to keep that vulnerability stacked on the next turn. Yeah, it's very scary. It's very scary. Hadros, at first, before reading all this and like talking to you guys, I thought Hadros was very hit or miss because of matchups like Dio Raja and Grypolith. But going through it more and more, and especially doing the math of it being distracted on top of its distraction resistance and what it could do to cunning creatures, and then just basically what it can do to the entire Fierce class, Hadros is a boss. Do you think there will be way more swapping now with players trying to avoid being hit while vulnerable and players swapping to hit you while vulnerable? Yes, I think there's going to be a lot more of that, which is why Spinal Constrictor may be jumping into the meta game, because not only could it counter Skunosaurus, but it can counter the swap-in game as well. Because Hadros on that first attack cannot go through the armor of a Sarah Magnus or Monolo Rhino. So I really think Spinal Constrictor could be a winner here. Because of winning counter. Yes, and I think Spinal Constrictor can take out Sarah Magnus a lot easier because that stun resistance, you can't use Sarah Magnus's acute stun as reliably to possibly get out of using or triggering Spinal Constrictor's swap. Which is why that stun, I think, is brilliant to make Spinal Constrictor good again. Wonder if this will make Hadros more viable in raids. That was my thought also. Like if you could use a Hadros versus Hadros raid because of that counter vulnerability, and then like if you use like a Hadros and Mortem counter to just dish out like 2-turn damage or 2-turn rounds, just deal massive damage. I feel like you could get through raids so much faster if you use a Hadros as well. Intellalania is immune to vulnerability, so do you think it will be used more often to counter Hadros? Intellalania? That's the turtle, right? That is the... Yeah, well, I think Intellalania is already underrated in the PvP arena right now as it is. uh, Immune to vulnerability, and it's immune to speed deceleration, which could make it still like a great option to fight off Gemini and had Maxima, possibly. Do not forget we will be getting Hydroboa. Ooh, that's right. Okay. Yes, we will be getting that as well. So maybe... I mean, it's very possible you can see both of those creatures on a PvP team now. It's possible to see both. That would just be scary. I mean, if you added both of those onto your team, you would take out basically the big problems in the metagame. Like, you would just have people in fear of swapping out. Because what I do all the time, because I've boosted my Titanoboa, and I made him purposely slower so that when he decelerates, like I can swap into Titanoboa when they're about to swap out. And I love getting people with that. I love doing it. But if you added them both in there, it would really make people hesitate before they swap in and out. Oh my gosh. Yes, that would really hinder the swap in game. It'll be, see, like the next couple months, like we're gonna have a very interesting time finding out what the meta is gonna look like. Because with the introduction of the new Apex Boa, it could change the entire swap in game as it is. Also, welcome to the stream, all of you. Dino Mides, Emma, Bernie, Anna, like, welcome all of you guys. Glad to have you guys here. He can actually beat Hadros, for Intellalania. Yeah, I think Intellalania is heavily underrated right now. And he may get better with this next update because if fierce creatures are not as viable anymore, those high armor, heavy damage dealing creatures may be the next wave in the meta. So maybe Intellalania would be the next staple. We don't know at the moment, but he could be. Yeah, if played correctly, yes. Very much so, because he has the dig in, devastation, persistent strike. You can use Hydroboa just the same as Titanoboa, but you can also heal when your opponent swaps out on it. Yes, but if you combine that with Spinal Constrictor as well, that does the bleed, that can also counter the flock creatures. That's why I think you could possibly see Spinal Constrictor and Hydroboa both on future PvP teams, which could push out either Ceramagnus or Monolo Rhino from the meta game, because a lot more players will want to just 1v1 you. So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of thoughts, and a lot of that we need to figure out, but I could see that happening. Like, granted, it will take a couple months before anyone unlocks Hydroboa, but I could see that coming in the future, having both Spinal Constrictor and Hydroboa on your team. This is a different me compared to all the goofing off I do in my videos, isn't it? Intellalania will be devastating. It could be if used correctly. It'll just be interesting to see how it does against a cunning creature, because I think he only has one move that can cleanse distraction. But because persistent ferocious strike that it has and devastation are both really hindered by a distraction move. Yeah, it would be a massive hit from devastation if it's not facing a cunning creature. It would have to do that against a big resilient creature like Hadros. But even then, like at that point, you may want to swap into a Sarah Magnus if Hadros is matched up against Intellialania to prevent that big hit, and so that the devastation has that 30% armor from Sarah Magnus or a Monolo Rhino. There's going to be, I think, a few more changes to the meta, but what do you guys think is going to be pushed out of the meta game because of all these changes? Because we're talking like a lot of new solutions to a lot of the current creatures, but which current creature do you guys see not being a part of the meta game anymore? Not one stands out to me to where, let's see here. Yeah, I don't see one standing out to me as like immediate, oh, he's gonna be bad now. How do you think this will affect Monolometrodon, Sarcorixis, and Magna? Ooh, juicy question. Monolometrodon, I think, is just gonna get totally outdone by a cunning creature. Because he's good against fierce creatures, and I don't see his speed being boosted fast enough to compete with the other cunning creatures that are going to be in the game. Because I think that we're going to see a lot more of very fast cunning creatures that'll hit hard, because the fierce class is going to be, I think, the smallest class of the game now. So there's not going to be any hesitation to put more cunning creatures on your team. Sarcorixis, it will have its resilient strike will not decelerate, but it will add vulnerability. I think Rixis will still be a beast in the tournaments. I think adding that vulnerability on top will compensate for the attack nerf it got a couple updates ago. If you start with the resilient strike, because it's still going to have the no escape, and it's still going to have the buff attack and still the stun, so it just may be able to deal more damage if you played it really smart, which I think you would still see it like in the top of the epic hybrids for tournaments. But we'll also see what plays out, because it can be vulnerable as well. Sad that Stiggy and Vexus aren't getting buffs. I'm not a fan of them. They can stay where they are. Do you think top level players will continue to use Mortem Rex? No. In all honesty, I don't think so. I think there's going to be so many counters to the fierce class, because if you think about what is going to be meta, the staples right now: Scorpius Rex Gen 3, Compso Koalas, Schoonosaurus, Monolo Rhino, Sarah Magnus. As of right now, I don't see Mortem or even a big, just fierce creature being on those top teams. I could see Tanato Rex coming back, because he could do that resilient strike first turn and then do massive damage that next turn. Absolutely massive damage with that defense shattering impact on a vulnerable creature. We've all experienced it. We've all experienced that hit without the vulnerability. With the vulnerability, that could be another game. I could be totally wrong, though. I could be totally wrong. We may see Mortems with absolutely... Well, I think we'll still see the Mortems in the lower arenas like Library that are boosted for raids. I think we'll still see that. But as far as like the 140 speed mortems with like the 3300 attack or like the 6500 health, I don't think we're going to see those big mortems anymore. Just because there's so many great counters. There's going to be so many. And that's the examples I said a second ago are not including the new cunning creatures that may be a part of the meta since there's no more deceleration. If Mordant was to be used, it would most likely be a revenge kill. Yeah, I think it would be a revenge killer. Just like kind of T-Rex is now. Like if you have like a super boosted T-Rex in the higher arenas, like it's just a revenge killer. But again, we could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. I just want to emphasize that this is just my first take on how the game is now and applying these changes to it, whereas we're going to be applying these changes to a different game on Tuesday. So everything I say could be totally wrong. But I am excited to see because I'm not for certain, but I will say that there may be new creatures that are going to be part of the metagame. I just am anxious to see which ones, because no one saw Acrocanthops being as good as it is now. No one at first glance saw that and was on day one's like, I'm going to boost this to counter the Rhino. Orlicospix? I think Orlicospix could be deadly in this next after these changes. I think Orlicospix is going to be is going to be like the cunning creature to have on your team. It can just deal so much damage and has so much health. It's hard to not use him because he's already really, really good right now. And I just feel like he's just going to get better after this update. But again, I could be totally wrong. Orlicospix, what other resistances does he have? Let me check out here while it's up here. 67% stun resistance, reduced damage. I think that'll be, I think that would be the deciding factor for it, because if it faces another cunning creature, even if it's slower, Orlicospix I don't think will fall to another cunning creature. So I think Orlicospix is going to be, I'm not going to say like put all your resources into Orlicospix. I'm not going to say that now. Things can change Tuesday and like a month from now. But just, I think we should wait on investing and wait on removing boosts until we figure out what's good again and what's not. Do you think they'll make raid bosses 100% resistant to vulnerability? No. I don't think they're going to be 100% vulnerable. Or else they would have done it in this update. Introducing all this. And plus, it makes the raids fail more often by having that, which, again, like Ludia, I'm pretty sure they don't want you to win extremely easily. So I think they're going to keep raid bosses vulnerable. Biggest winners seem to consist of Skuna, Spinal Constrictor, and Orlicospix. That's my first take also. Just by the review. We'll see in the long term, like a month or two down the road, who the real winners are. Because like I would love to reiterate history where the top creatures of each update were not figured out until a little bit after the update actually happened. They were not like, the update's here, this is the best creature, we've boosted this to the max right now, and we've used it all season. No, the creatures have changed each season and each update. Oh my goodness. And I think it'll be a little bit of time before we figure out what's going to be the top tier classes again. Erlichospex is another great counter to Scorpius Rex Gen 3. Yeah, precise attack. And the resistance to distraction is going to really help Erlichospex here. And along with the stun resistance and damage over time resistance, yeah. This update feels game-changing. It may feel that way at first, but I don't think it's going to be as big as we think, because we're focusing on the topics of what is going to be changing, whereas we're not focusing on what's not changing. So it's going to feel like a lot's changing, where maybe in the meta, like only 2 or 3 big meta creatures change. Like it'll feel that way just because we're focusing on it. I mean, honestly, like if I look at my PvP team right now, the only thing that's going to stand out to me is I'm going to definitely get rid of Thor and try to find something else. But other than that, like, we'll just see how it goes. There was no changes to Gorgotrebex. I want to point that out also. I felt like if there was any cunning creature that was going to have the let's see here, the Cautious Rampage that was armor piercing ×2, I felt like it should have been Gorgotrebex. It's a new ability. It has its own thing, right? Yeah, it's Cautious Impact, and it's not changing. So yeah, I feel like Gorgotrebex should have that Cautious Rampage. That's just my thoughts. Maybe it would have made Gorgotrebex OP. I mean, possibly, but if there's no more... there's just a lot of speculation right now. We will not find out until the dust settles a couple months from now. We won't know. And there's no way of us figuring it out right now. So this was just to get some of your guys' ideas out there, clarify some of them, dive a little more into what could be changing. But ultimately, I think we could all agree that we needed the resilient deceleration removed. I think we all could agree that needed to happen. More and more creatures were coming out that were immune to deceleration. The cunning class wasn't there. I feel like we all agree that the resilient moves needed to be changed. So I think, I mean, I know I'm happy for this update. I mean, there's more good, I feel like, coming out of this update than bad. I just want to reiterate that. There's a lot of good things coming out of this update that I think we all really, really wanted. They have to know the stats of players not using, I'm guessing, Gorgotrebex nearly as much as the other Apexes. This is my thought also. Like, I feel like Referenanthem or the Eagle Apex is just going to be the least used Apex of them all. I wonder how Referenanthem will play in PvP. I'm wondering how it will also. Because it has that insane counter distraction. It'll be interesting to see how it works. But we won't know for a while, so even though we have some visible winners here, but they could be such big visible winners that there may just be such a team of counters for them. So let's not just jump on the bandwagon of these creatures are going to be the best out of this update. There's still time will tell. We all thought that the Thor nerf was like way long ago was just going to end it, but it's still reigning supreme. We've all assumed things after update notes like this have happened, and they were not true. I wonder if Quetzal Orion will be useful for the Hydra Boa raid. It could. It could. I'd definitely have to try it. Like, that'd definitely take some looking into to see if there was a strategy that could utilize his skills that are not like a group attack, the healing, and the damage output. But it's definitely something we could try to figure out. We got a lot of fabulous members on the Valley server for our Jurassic World Alive co-op that would actually enjoy trying to figure out a raid like that. If you want to join, go right ahead. It is a public server open to everyone. Yeah, these are just my thoughts on the update 2.9 notes. Let me know what you guys think. I think I'm going to wrap up stream there. It's been 2 hours already. Oh gosh, I've been talking for 2 hours. I'm surprised you guys aren't dead by now. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Even after the stream is over, it'll be up on the channel. But thank you everyone that has came, watched the stream. I'm super excited. Super excited. I'm super happy we were able to talk this all out. And I look forward to this update. More good things are coming out of this update than bad, I feel like. And that makes me excited for it. So thank you everyone for joining, and I hope everyone has a fabulous day.